Good morning, grade 10, Unit 2 North Star Avoiding Identity Theft. How are you guys doing? I bet you're good. Okay, let's flip our page to focus on speaking. That's where we're at right now. That is at page 39. We're going faster than we thought, eh? Okay, there we are. Focus on speaking. Vocabulary, as usual. We're going to review the vocabulary that you've learned already throughout this unit, Unit 2. And yeah, let's take a look. A word can have a meaning that is positive, which always refers to good. It can be negative, which would mean bad, or neutral. That would be just in between. That could be good, so neither good nor bad. This is called the connotation of a word or expression. Connotation. What is that? Now, connotation is an underlying meaning or a meaning that is associated to a word. For example, the connotation of a word can be positive, can be negative, can be neutral. How the word can be explained. Sometimes we can say that a word, we say something and well, it has a negative connotation. It means a negative underlying meaning or sense. So for example, safe. Safe, positive. Fraud, negative. Department store, neutral. There is no emotion or whatsoever attached to it. So that is basically what connotation is. Yeah, it is an underlying idea or a meaning associated to a word. Now, connotation, we have connotation for every word that we use in writing and every word that we use in speaking. The idea or feeling that a word releases or has in addition to its literal meaning. So a word can have a literal meaning. For example, the word safe, it means that everything is okay. But then the connotation in this case is positive. So that is the underlying meaning that is given to not only just the primary meaning of a word. Awesome. That brings us here to number 1. We have several words here in the table. Authorize, charge, commit, confirm, deal with, expose, file a complaint, paranoid, proof of identification, protect, purchase, risk, share, tip, and victim. What I want you to do, I want you to complete a chart with the words from this box into the correct column, looking at the connotation that each word has. So besides the primary meaning of the word, look at the connotation. Does it have an underlying meaning that is positive, negative, or a neutral sense that is associated to it? Okay, you can pause your video and do that. Go ahead. Great, awesome. So we know now that connotation means an underlying meaning, sense that is associated with the word. Exactly. Now, that brings us here to expanding the information from building upon everything we have already learned in listening 1 and in listening 2 of Unit 2. Read the emails from Lucia to her friend Julie and notice the bold-faced words. Exactly. So here we've got the first phrase, not word but phrase, ripped me off. We've got cleaned out, turns out, put him away, and watch out for. Those are phrases, yeah? If it's more than one word and it's not a sentence, it's called a phrase. Exactly. Now, that brings us to the next page. Here we've got the same phrases, yeah? Circle the best synonym or definition for each bold-faced word. Which is the best? Pause your video and answer. Awesome. Okay, we're gonna go quite fast through that because most of it you already know. If you still have a problem with any of the words or phrases, you can just Look it up online or use your old-fashioned paperback dictionary. Those are good. And you could also write the Indonesian meaning above the word or next to it or under it, just to make sure that you remember. Great. That brings us to the part for creating. Now, here basically we were supposed to work in groups of 3, play the game to tell the truth, and you would have to follow the steps. Yeah, it's a pity that we cannot do that right now, how we would want to, as soon as possible, be able to go back to our normal classroom and meet each other. I'm looking forward to that, and I believe you too. Yeah, right? Right. Okay, telling the truth. Now here basically it says the first one. Think of a time when something was stolen from you from a form a group with the other 2 students and share your story. So even though we cannot do this right now in the classroom, I would still want you to think about it and think about a time when something was stolen from you and what did you think about what happened? What do you feel about that? Yeah, I would like you to think about that and write that down a little bit just as a reminder. So in our next Zoom meeting, you can share your thoughts on a time in which something was stolen from you and how you felt and what you thought and what happened basically when that happened. Awesome. That brings us to the next page. Okay, that brings us to a serious part, which is grammar. Here we're looking at the picture, 2 people who are talking, they're having a conversation, and again we have the bold-faced words. In this case, these are the models of advice, words that we use in order to give advice. So in this case, we mostly would use the words like should, or you had better not, or you ought to, oughta. So the models of advice here, as we can see, the daughter says, I got my first credit card in the mail today. The mother answers, you should sign it right away, and you'd better not lose it. And the mom says, you ought to stop worrying so much. It's important that you sign any card you get from the bank, right? Now, for the models of advice, what we can see here, you use should to ask for advice, like should I show them proof of identification, or what should I do if someone steals my passport, or what should I? It's a very good way to ask for advice using the model should. You can also use should or should not or oughta to give advice. So when you ask for advice, you should. But if you give advice, you could use should not, or ought to. For example, he should get a locked mailbox, or they shouldn't send personal information by email, or you ought to ask your boss to keep your personal information in a locked file. All right? Now, you can use had better and had better not to give a strong advice. If you're just giving a normal advice with less emphasis, you could just use the words we mentioned just now. But when we're looking at giving an advice which has more emphasis, so a stronger and more serious advice, you can use had better or had better not, like we'd better shred those papers, or we'd better not throw those papers in the trash. You see that by using those models, your advice becomes more serious and it's just more emphasized. Right? So it's important that you remember that. You guys can try this out when you're talking to people, like maybe even with your friends, when you're you want to ask for advice, or a teacher, or you want to give advice. Try to use these models, okay? Cool. Now, in activity 2, here we have sentences that are not completed, and I'd like you to complete the sentences by using the correct model for advice. Which one do you think is the correct one to use? Please circle that. You're going to do numbers 1 until 8. Pause your video. Good. Awesome beans. That leaves us to 3. Okay, asking for advice and giving advice, this is basically the time where we're supposed to practice this. These are fun activities, okay, when you're in a classroom, and I understand that doing all this at home by yourself is not always as fun, but we keep the spirit, right? Okay, let's look at the example here. Student A, I haven't received any mail for 3 days. What should I do? Student B, you should check with the post office to see whether someone is stealing your mail. So we basically should go back and forth and trying this out, which we will definitely do in our Zoom meeting. So I would like you to go over sentences 1 until 6, just annotate the keywords, understand the topic, so when we meet at our next Zoom meeting, we can try this one out together. So we're going to try to give advice and ask for advice. For example, number 1, I saw someone take a letter out of my neighbor's mailbox. What should I do? And then you could try to answer by using the models for advice, right? Okay, so you don't have to write this down right now in your textbook, but I would like you to try it out when we meet in our next Zoom meeting. Okay, so you could use any of the words we talked about just now. You could be using should or should not, oughta, or you can even, if you want to become stronger in your answer, use have better or have better not. Cool. That kind of brings us to pronunciation. Pronunciation is everything to do with how you announce, how you pronounce, how you articulate yourself in a language. Now, in pronunciation, we can recognize compounds. Now, compound words are 2 nouns that are used together to name one thing. So, for example, if I'm saying toothbrush, if I break it down into 2 words, I've got tooth and I've got brush, right? But if I put those 2 words together, it becomes one word with one meaning. That's a compound word, or a compound noun in this case. For example, mailbox, we've got 2 nouns are written together as one word. We've got mail and we've got box that separately have meaning placed together as one word, creates one word with one meaning. Now these compounds are easy to recognize. Other compounds like identity theft and credit card are written as 2 words, so it might be a little bit harder to recognize them. Compounds have a special pattern or stress and pitch and its pronunciation. So we've got actually compound nouns that are written as one word. So they're attached. We have some that are detached, so they have like space in between. And there are even some that are hyphenated. They use that hyphen in the middle of the word. Now, knowing when to separate them or when to use a hyphen, you would have to look that up in the dictionary. There's no specific rule for that. So here we've got post office, yeah? Credit card, identity theft, garbage can, mailbox, police station, bank account, and roommate.
1.
Post office.
2.
Credit card.
3.
Identity theft.
4.
Garbage can.
5.
Mailbox.
6.
Police station.
7.
Bank account.
8.
Roommate.
Okay, great. Now, as you were listening just now, you could hear that the first word has the heaviest stress and a higher pitch. Post office, credit card, identity theft. So basically, garbage can. So the emphasis is on the first word and the pitch is a little bit higher. The second word is not stressed as much and the pitch is lower. Post office, credit card. You see that goes up and down. Sometimes another noun follows a compound, making a 3-word compound like identity theft victim. That's a 3-word compound, still connected together with one meaning. Now the first word has the heaviest stress and the highest pitch. The following word has less stress and a lower pitch. Identity theft victim. Identity theft victim. So it kind of goes down like that, right? Now, what is it that you're going to do? Okay, that's always the catch. There's always a catch, right? There is. Listen to the nouns and repeat them. Circle the words that are pronounced as compounds with heavy stress and high pitch on the first word. Okay, so you listen to the notes, repeat them, because I would like you to practice the pronunciation. Okay, so you repeat them. Then you circle the words that are pronounced as compounds. Yeah, so the ones with the heavy stress and the high pitch on the first word. So, and that's what you need to do. So, which one out of, for example, diamond ring, which one is stressed? Which one has the heavy stress and the high pitch? That one you underline or circle.
1,
Diamond ring.
2,
Charge accounts.
3,
Online.
4,
Email.
5,
Internet fraud.
6,
Police report.
7,
$5,000.
8,
ID.
9,
Website.
10,
Personal information.
11,
$10 bill.
12.
Mailbox key.
Okay, so not all of these words are pronounced as compounds. Okay, not all of them. So out of 12, there are only several. Only 8 that are pronounced as compound words. So I want you to pick the ones that are pronounced as compounds, meaning with heavy stress and high pitch on the first word, because compounds always have the heavy stress and high pitch on the first word. Those are the ones that you pick. I'm going to let you listen to it one more time.
1,
Diamond ring.
2,
Charge accounts.
3,
Online.
4,
Email.
5,
Internet fraud.
6,
Police report.
7,
$5,000.
8,
ID.
9,
Website.
10,
Personal information.
11,
$10 bill.
12.
Mailbox key.
Okay, great. Having done that brings us to number 2. So what I want you to do is answer questions number 1 and 2 and try to pronounce the compounds correctly by yourself. Answer these questions and we will discuss it in our Zoom meeting. Take some time to do that. What's in your wallet? And what should you do if you lose your wallet or if someone steals it? And has this ever happened to you? What did you do? Take some time to answer this. Great, that brings us to the speaking skill, keeping a conversation going. Have you ever had it that you had a conversation with someone and it kind of died out? Like you start talking and it becomes awkward and you go like, what am I supposed to say next? Like you feel like that it's coming to an end, but you feel awkward and you don't really, you feel uncomfortable. You have the idea like I still have to say something. We kind of have to talk, but I don't know how to keep this going. Now, keeping a conversation going, both speakers need to show that they are listening. Listening is the key, because when you're listening, you pick up the key points of what someone's saying, and from there you can respond. Sometimes encouraging the other person to keep talking is also a good way. So you can listen really carefully to the key points that someone is making and using those key points to keep a conversation going. Another thing is that maybe you have to encourage someone to keep talking. So you could ask, keep asking. Okay, listen to and read the conversation. Notice the underlined words and the rising and falling intonation for each.
So, I got a call from this guy,
Uh-huh.
and he wanted me to give money to some organization called Amazon Rainforest something or other. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, go on.
Anyway, I got this weird feeling from him. Basically, I didn't trust him.
So, what did you do?
Well, I just hung up on him. You'd better be careful about these things, right?
Right.
Okay, you see that? The underlined phrases are very clear on It's just to show like, okay, I'm listening. Yes, go on. I want to know more. Keep talking. So what you should do is just a question to get more information. And this is just affirming, right, of what the person has said. So to show that you are listening, there is often a rising intonation. So yeah, okay, right, wow. See that? So this is more as in all you can confirm. So you can have an intonation that goes up, but you can also have an intonation that goes down. Now to encourage the speaker to keep talking, yeah, go on. And so, and then what? So what did she say? What did you do? What happened next? So, okay, so what we can see here is that there is a rising and a falling intonation to keep a conversation going. So that can be a confirmation or a confirmative way of answering that you heard the person, agreed with the person, understand the person. I mean, you can also ask questions. Oh yeah, really? What happened next? What did you do? Yeah? And yeah, we definitely play with intonation for that. Now here you see that there is a conversation. I'd like you to complete the conversation. You choose a language to show you are listening or to encourage your speaker. I would like you to do that. So in the beginning for this conversation, we basically are looking at, we have here two conversations. Okay, and the first one starts off with, so I was in my apartment and saw this man outside looking through my garbage. Now what I want you to do is I want you to respond, either with an affirmative response or with a question. And you do that going up till the second page until, and they were my bank statements. And then you do conversation 2. You can pause your video to do that. Go ahead. Awesome. That brings us basically to the project that you're having for this unit, our final speaking task, what we're doing. And let's read it together. A role play is a short performance. The actors take on roles or become characters and act out a situation. Often the situations are similar to experiences that people might have in real life. Now, in this activity, you will create and perform a 3 to 5 minute role play about identity theft. You got to work in a group of 3 and you follow the steps. You try to use the vocabulary and the grammar and the pronunciation and listening and speaking skills that you have learned in this unit. So yeah, you're definitely doing this one together in a group of 3. You are going to choose a situation for the role play. So you choose from the following ideas: filing a police report, receiving a bill from a department store, calling a credit card company about the theft, giving advice to a friend about identity theft, or your own idea, which is totally good. Decide on the place, the characters, and the story, and choose from the following ideas. Now, the place could be, for example, a police station, in a department store, on the phone. Characters, think about age, personality, and feelings about the situation. Could be identity theft victim, police officer, store employee, identity thief, anything else. And the story, give the background, like what happened before the role play starts. And the plot, what happens during the role play. Okay. Then step 2, what you need to do is you create the role play and you act like your character and speak naturally, not reading from a paper. Okay, you can look at a paper, like glimpse at the paper, but you can't read it, because if you start reading everything, then you do not become natural in your speech anymore. Because when you're reading, you cannot look at the other characters playing their role. Practice the role play several times and perform your role play for your class. Now, what you're going to do, you're going to record it. Now, recording a role play is very possible. Even though if you're not meeting up, you can just record your roles separately, and then in the video, you can just edit it and combine it all together into one role play. That's very possible. So what you're going to do is in groups of 3, you're all going to have your own role. Prepare it from step 1 to step 2 and step 3. You record everything and then you edit it. Okay, that's awesome. That's fun. Okay, cool. But remember, you got to use the grammar and vocabulary from Unit 2. Also think about the part of pronunciation and the listening and speaking skills that you have learned. You will have to use in this project. Awesome. Now that brings us to the end of Unit 2. You did a great job, definitely so. And I am very glad that you always try so hard to follow the lessons, even though I know it is not always easy doing everything online. But then again, you are awesome people, so, right? What is it we did just now? We went over the vocabulary, basically reviewed the vocabulary of Unit 2, and we talked about connotation. So please remember, guys, that connotations are an associated meaning to a word, an underlying sense or meaning that is added to a word other than just a primary meaning. And mostly the connotation is positive, negative, or neutral. Right. And then we looked at the words synonym and definition. Yes, that's what we looked at the words, the vocabulary in context. And then we talked about, basically we had to play a game we couldn't do, which is okay, but you had to think about a time when something was stolen from you and put some points down in your textbook so that in our Zoom meeting you can tell us about it. For grammar, we looked at models of advice. Remember that when you ask advice, we use the model should, as in should I. And to give advice, you can use should not, and ought to, or oughta. And to give a stronger advice with more emphasis, you can use had better or had better not. And then you had to practice asking for advice and giving advice. For pronunciation, we looked at recognizing compounds. So compound nouns are mostly 2 nouns that are put together separately. They have a separate meaning put together into one word, which can be attached or separated over the hyphen. It still becomes one word with one meaning. Yes. And for the speaking skill, we talked about keeping a conversation going, which maybe can just be nodding or giving an affirmative statement. From yeah, oh yeah, I agree, go on, or even a question that keeps a conversation going. And for your speaking test, of course, you're going to do a short role play with a group of 3, which is separately recorded, is a video file, not audio, but a video file, and which then will be edited, trimmed, rendered, and submitted. Awesome. That's all for Unit 2. listening and speaking, avoiding identity theft. I'll see you soon. God bless you. Bye, guys.